It was late in the evening when Sam, the mechanic, finished his long day at the garage. His hands were greasy, his back was aching, and his wallet was almost empty. He had been struggling for weeks with fewer customers and rising bills. That night, after counting the little money he had left, he realized it was barely enough for bread and a bus ticket for the next day. But Sam was not the kind of man to complain. He put on his worn jacket, locked the garage door, and started walking toward the bus stop. The air was biting cold. A sharp wind blew down the empty street, and most people hurried into warm houses. Sam pulled his jacket tighter around his shoulders, wishing he had saved enough for a proper meal. As he reached the bus stop, he noticed something unusual. On the bench, sitting quietly, was a small boy with messy hair and a thin hoodie. The child's lips were trembling, and his little hands were tucked under his arms, trying to fight the cold. Sam paused. He could see the boy's breath in the frosty air. The sight struck him. No child should sit out in such cold without warmth. Sam walked closer and asked gently, "Hey, buddy, are you all right? Where's your coat?" The boy lifted his head slowly, his eyes wide but tired. I lost my gloves at school. My mom's coming to get me, but the bus is late." His voice was shaky, almost breaking. Sam looked at the boy's small fingers, red and stiff from the freezing wind. He thought about his own childhood, the winters when his father would wrap his hands in old socks because there was no money for gloves. He could still remember the pain of numb fingers and the relief when warmth finally came. The memory hit him deep. He couldn't walk away. Sam looked into his wallet. There was only one crumpled dollar left, his very last. He sighed, knowing this dollar was supposed to be for tomorrow's bread. But his eyes went back to the child. Bread could wait. Warmth for this boy could not. He hurried across the street to the small corner shop, the kind with buzzing lights and shelves of cheap snacks. With his single dollar, he bought a small packet of hand warmers and a hot cocoa from the vending machine. It wasn't much, but it was all he could give. As he walked back, he hoped the boy would at least feel a little comfort. "Here, kiddo," Sam said with a smile, handing over the cocoa. "Hold this, it'll warm you up from the inside." And these, he opened the hand warmers and placed them gently in the boy's small palms. "They'll keep your fingers from freezing." The boy looked surprised. His eyes shone, and a smile spread across his face as he cupped the warm drink. "Thank you, mister," he whispered, his voice soft but full of relief. Sam sat down beside him. "Don't worry, your mom will be here soon. Until then, you're not alone." He stayed with the boy, making small jokes, talking about cars, and even imitating the sound of engines to make him laugh. Slowly, the child stopped shivering so much. Minutes later, a bus pulled up. The boy stood, holding his cocoa tightly. Before climbing onto the bus, he turned back to Sam and said, "My name's Leo. You're really kind. I'll tell my mom about you." Sam chuckled and waved as the boy disappeared into the bus. Then he started his walk home with empty pockets but a strange warmth in his chest. He had no bread, no money, and no certainty about tomorrow, but he felt richer in a way that could not be measured. As he reached his small rented room, he lay down on the creaky bed, replaying the boy's smile in his mind. Something about that moment stayed with him, stronger than hunger or cold. Sam didn't know that this small act, spending his very last dollar, was about to change more than just one evening. It would set off a chain of events that would reach far beyond what he ever imagined. The night passed quietly for Sam, but far across town, the little boy Leo was still thinking about the kind mechanic who had helped him. At breakfast, he told his mother Maria everything about the freezing cold, about the cocoa, about the warm packets that saved his hands, and about the man who gave away his last dollar. Maria listened closely, her eyes softening as she realized how much kindness had been shown to her child by a stranger who had nothing to spare. Maria felt a mixture of gratitude and guilt. She wished she had been there sooner, and she wanted to thank the man properly. But Leo didn't know Sam's last name or where exactly he worked. He said he fixes cars, Mom, Leo explained. His hands were all dirty from engines. That little clue was enough. Maria made a mental note there weren't too many small garages in their part of town. She would find him. Later that morning, Maria posted a short note on her social media page. She wrote, "To the kind mechanic who gave my son cocoa and hand warmers at the bus stop last night, you turned a cold, scary moment into something warm and safe. Thank you from the bottom of my heart." She didn't think much of it, but within hours, the message began to spread. Friends shared it, neighbors added comments, and soon others began asking, who was he? Does anyone know him? By noon, a passerby who had been near the bus stop uploaded a photo they had quietly taken. It showed Sam crouched down, handing the cocoa to Leo with a gentle smile. The image was simple but powerful: oil-stained hands, a worn-out jacket, a tired face, but a heart full of kindness. The post went from a few shares to hundreds. Back in his garage, Sam had no idea. He was busy trying to coax life out of an old truck that had broken down. His stomach growled, reminding him he hadn't had much for dinner the night before. Still, he kept working, because fixing cars was the only thing he knew how to do. His small shop smelled of oil and rust, with tools neatly arranged on a pegboard. It wasn't much, but it was his pride. That afternoon, a neighbor stopped by the garage with a bag in her hands. "I read something about you online," she said shyly. "I thought you could use these." She handed Sam a bundle of scarves and gloves. "Maybe if you meet another kid like that boy, you'll have extras to give." Sam was confused, but he accepted them gratefully. He pinned them up near the door with a small handwritten sign, "If you're cold, take one." Word spread quickly. More neighbors showed up, leaving old coats, hats, and mittens. At first, Sam felt awkward. He wasn't looking for attention. He had only wanted to help one child. But soon, he realized this was bigger than him. His small garage was turning into a quiet corner of kindness. That evening, Maria and Leo visited. Leo carried a card he had made with crayons. It showed two stick figures holding a steaming cup, standing under a shining sun. At the bottom, in messy handwriting, he had written, "Thank you, Sam." Maria shook Sam's hand firmly, her eyes watery. "You didn't just give my son warmth," she said. "You gave me peace of mind. I can't thank you enough." Sam smiled modestly. "It was nothing. Just something small I could do." But Maria shook her head. "Small to you. Big to us." By the next day, local reporters had picked up the story. A journalist arrived at the garage, camera in hand. "Are you the mechanic who helped the boy?" she asked. Sam scratched his head, embarrassed. "I'm just a man who did what anyone would do," he replied. But they filmed him anyway, fixing an engine, wiping his hands on a rag, explaining softly that no one should feel cold if he could help it. That night, the story aired on the evening news. People across town saw the image of Sam giving cocoa to a child. They heard about the "take one if you're cold" board. And they were moved. By morning, Sam's garage was busier than it had been in months. Customers who had been delaying car repairs showed up, saying, "We want to support you." Some dropped off coats. Others paid for repairs in advance, telling him to use the extra money to help someone in need. Sam was overwhelmed, but he greeted each person with the same humble smile. Even his landlord, who was usually strict about rent, came by. "You've been good to this block," the man admitted. "I'll give you a short extension on your rent this month. Keep doing what you're doing." Sam nodded, deeply grateful. He didn't like charity, but he could see this was different. This wasn't pity, it was community. And he wanted to give back in a way that matched the trust people were showing him. So he set up a new board inside the garage, "Pay it forward repairs." Customers could prepay small amounts, $10, $20, whatever they liked, that would go toward fixing cars for people who couldn't afford repairs. When Maria saw the board, she smiled. "See, Leo," she whispered to her son. "One good act leads to another." Leo beamed proudly. He knew the mechanic who had saved his cold hands was now saving many more people in his own quiet way. What Sam didn't know was that the story was still spreading far beyond his town. And soon, strangers he had never met would come knocking at his garage door with even bigger opportunities. Sam's little garage had never been this alive before. For years it had been quiet, with only the sound of wrenches turning and engines coughing back to life. But now, ever since the story of his kindness had spread, people were coming not only for repairs but also to see the man who gave away his last dollar to help a child. At first, Sam was shy about the attention. He wasn't used to people praising him. To him, helping Leo had been natural, something his heart told him to do. But when neighbors dropped by with bags of gloves, scarves, and coats, he realized this was no longer about him alone. His small act had started something larger. One morning, as Sam was finishing work on an old sedan, a reporter walked into the shop. She carried a small camera and a notebook. "Mr. Sam," she began, "your story touched many hearts. People want to know more about you." Sam shook his head. "I'm no hero," he said softly, wiping grease from his hands. "I just couldn't walk past a cold child." The reporter smiled gently. "And that is why people see you as special. Sometimes the simplest acts remind us what humanity looks like." That evening, his story aired again on television. The footage showed him working, with oil-stained hands and a tired but kind face. Viewers heard about the "Take One If You're Cold" board in his garage and how neighbors were now dropping off warm clothes for anyone in need. The image was powerful. It showed a man with little, giving more than most people with plenty. By the next week, cars lined up outside his shop. People who had never visited before now wanted their cars repaired by the mechanic with the big heart. Some said directly, "We trust you more than anyone else." Others left money on the counter and told him to use it for his Pay It Forward board. Sam felt overwhelmed but also deeply grateful. For the first time in a long while, he didn't have to worry about his rent. He even managed to buy fresh bread and a hot meal without counting every penny. But what touched him most were the little gestures. A woman came with her teenage son, who shyly handed Sam a knitted scarf. "My grandma made this for you," the boy said. "She said heroes should not feel cold." Another customer brought in a box of new coats for children, saying she wanted to continue the circle of kindness. One chilly Saturday, Maria, Leo's mother, stopped by again. This time she wasn't alone. She brought a few teachers from Leo's school who had been inspired by the story. "We want to organize something," Maria explained. "A coat and glove drive for the children at school who don't have enough for winter. We thought your garage would be the perfect place." Sam hesitated. His garage was small and messy, filled with tools and half-fixed engines. But then he looked at Leo, who was proudly holding a sign he had painted, "Warm hands, warm hearts." Sam couldn't say no. Within days, the word spread. People from across town dropped off new gloves, hats, and scarves. Some brought boxes of hot cocoa packets. Others volunteered to help organize. The little garage was no longer just a workplace, it had become a hub of kindness. On the day of the event, the garage buzzed with laughter, music, and warmth. Children came in shyly, but their faces lit up when they received soft new gloves or a cozy coat. Parents hugged Sam, thanking him for allowing his garage to be a place of care. In the middle of it all, a man approached Sam. He was tall, with a neat jacket and a friendly smile. "I'm the manager of a delivery fleet," he introduced himself. "I saw your story. We've been looking for someone reliable to maintain our vans. You seem like the right man, not just because of your skills, but because of your heart." Sam blinked in surprise. A fleet contract was more than he had ever dreamed of. It meant steady work, stable income, and the chance to grow his business. For the first time in years, Sam felt hope blossom in his chest. That evening, after the event ended, Sam sat on a stool in his garage. Around him were empty cocoa cups, colorful scarves still pinned to the board, and the echo of children's laughter. He looked at Leo's drawing still taped to his toolbox and whispered, "All this because of $1. What he didn't know yet was that this was just the beginning. His kindness was still traveling farther than he could see, touching lives he hadn't met, and opening doors he never thought would open. Sam's life had already begun to shift in small but powerful ways. The garage that once echoed only with the clinking of tools now hummed with new energy. The Pay It Forward board filled quickly, neighbors leaving small contributions for others, strangers dropping in with bags of gloves, and children running in to hang their colorful scarves. What had started with $1 and a hot cocoa had blossomed into something bigger than Sam could have ever imagined. One cold morning, Sam opened the garage to find several volunteers waiting. They were teachers, parents, and even a few teenagers who had read about his warm hands, warm hearts effort. They wanted to help organize the growing pile of coats and gloves. Sam looked around at his cluttered garage and chuckled. "I never thought this old place would look like a store for kindness," he said. The volunteers laughed with him, but their hands moved quickly, sorting, folding, and placing items neatly. That weekend, the community held another event at the garage. This time it wasn't only about coats. Someone had brought a big pot of soup, another came with trays of sandwiches. Local musicians offered to play soft songs, filling the chilly space with warmth that no heater could match. Families gathered together, children tried on new gloves, and the air buzzed with gratitude. Sam stood quietly in a corner, watching. He wasn't the kind of man to give long speeches. But when Maria nudged him, saying, "People want to hear from you," he cleared his throat and spoke simply. "I don't have fancy words. I just believe no one should feel left out in the cold. If we each give a little, we can make a big difference." The crowd clapped, and Sam quickly stepped back, embarrassed by the attention. As the event went on, a man in a crisp jacket approached Sam. He introduced himself as Robert, a manager from a regional auto parts supplier. "I've been following your story," Robert said. "I think you deserve a little support. From now on, you'll have a line of credit with us and we'll offer discounts on parts. No mechanic who does this much good should struggle to keep his shop running." Sam's mouth fell open. It was a gift he hadn't expected, and he shook Robert's hand firmly, whispering, "Thank you." The surprises didn't stop there. A few days later, a school counselor visited the garage. She had seen how Sam welcomed children during the coat event. "Would you consider hosting a regular program here?" she asked. "Maybe once a month, families could come for gloves, coats, or even free hot cocoa." Sam thought about it, then smiled. "If my garage can be a place of warmth, I'm all for it." Soon after, Maria and little Leo returned. This time Leo held something behind his back. With a wide grin, he handed Sam a framed drawing, the same one he had given earlier, but now decorated with bright colors. "So you won't forget us," Leo said. Sam's eyes softened as he hung the picture on the wall above his toolbox. Every time he looked at it, he remembered why it all began. Another evening, a local TV crew returned to cover the second event. They filmed families choosing coats, volunteers pouring soup, and Sam quietly fixing a car in the corner while children played around him. The anchor closed the segment by saying, "Sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms. Sometimes they wear greasy jackets and hold wrenches. And sometimes, they change a town with a single act of kindness." As if things couldn't get brighter, the man from the delivery fleet came back. He carried a folder with him. "Here's the contract," he said. "We want you to maintain all of our vans. It's steady work, Sam. You'll never have to worry about slow weeks again." Sam took the folder carefully, his hands trembling slightly. He had dreamed of stability but never thought it would come this way. That night, after everyone left, Sam sat alone in the garage. The quiet was comforting. He looked at the walls now lined with scarves, coats, and kind notes pinned up by strangers. He glanced at Leo's framed drawing, the little sun shining bright in crayon. He remembered the night when he had only $1 and the choice to spend it on himself or on a shivering child. He whispered to himself, $1 started all this. His heart felt lighter than it had in years. He knew tomorrow would bring more challenges, but now he also knew he wasn't facing them alone. The whole community was standing beside him. And deep down, Sam realized that kindness works like an engine. One small spark can set the whole machine of humanity moving, creating warmth and light in places where there was once only cold. The weeks turned into months, and Sam's little garage transformed into something far greater than a repair shop. What had started with one kind act on a freezing night had now grown into a place where people came not only to fix their cars but also to share kindness, warmth, and hope. The steady contract from the delivery fleet gave Sam the security he had long dreamed of. With regular work, he no longer worried about empty days or overdue rent. He repaired vans with care, making sure each one ran smoothly, and the drivers often left him extra food or supplies as thanks. Slowly, Sam's shop became financially stable, but more importantly, it became emotionally rich. He used the extra income wisely. The failing lift in his garage was replaced, making it safer and easier to work on heavy vehicles. He also hired a young apprentice named Daniel, a teenager from the neighborhood who had dropped out of school. Daniel was shy and had no direction, but Sam saw potential in him. "I'll teach you about engines," Sam said, "but more than that, I'll teach you that kindness is never wasted." Under Sam's patient guidance, Daniel began to learn not only about cars but also about responsibility and giving back. The Pay It Forward board inside the garage grew more colorful each day. Notes of gratitude were pinned up alongside small donations. One note read, "My car broke down on the way to work. Sam fixed it and used the Pay It Forward fund. Now I'm back on my feet. Thank you." Another note said, "We came for gloves, but we left with hope. Thank you for reminding us there are good people in this world." Sam read each message with quiet humility, never boasting, only grateful that the circle of kindness continued to spin. Every December, the Warm Hands Day event became a tradition. What started with a handful of gloves and scarves grew into a full community gathering. Volunteers decorated the garage with strings of lights, and families brought pots of soup, trays of cookies, and boxes of new winter wear. Musicians played cheerful songs, children laughed as they tried on bright coats, and the air was filled with joy that even the coldest wind couldn't take away. Maria played a big role in organizing these events. She and Sam had become good friends, and little Leo adored spending time at the garage. He loved handing out cocoa to children and telling anyone who would listen, "This is the man who saved me from the cold." His framed drawing still hung proudly on Sam's wall, becoming a symbol of how one act of kindness could change everything. One particular December, as Sam looked around the crowded garage filled with smiling faces, he felt a lump in his throat. He remembered the night he had only $1 left and how he chose to spend it not on himself but on a shivering child. That single choice had changed not only Leo's life but also his own and the entire community. Later that night, after the event ended, Sam sat alone in the quiet garage. He opened his cash drawer and carefully took out a crisp $1 bill. He placed it in a small jar he had labeled Last Dollar Fund. It was a reminder of where it all began. Every time he saw that jar, he remembered that true wealth wasn't about money, it was about kindness, compassion, and the courage to give even when you had little. Daniel, his apprentice, noticed the jar one day and asked, "Why do you keep just $1 in there?" Sam smiled. "Because it reminds me that $1, if used with love, can be worth more than a fortune." Daniel nodded, understanding slowly that the garage wasn't only about cars. It was about lessons for life. Over time, the story of Sam's kindness continued to ripple outward. Travelers passing through town stopped by the garage just to shake his hand. Schools invited him to speak about kindness, though he always kept his words simple. "Do what you can, with what you have," he would say. "Even the smallest act can make the world warmer." And so, the poor mechanic who once counted his last dollar each night became the heart of his community, not because he was rich or powerful, but because he chose kindness when it mattered most. His garage stood as a reminder that even in a world full of cold nights, one warm act could light the way for many. As he locked up the shop each evening, Sam often looked at Leo's drawing, now slightly faded but still bright with love. He would smile to himself, whispering, $1, one child, one choice, that was all it